Hello, my name is James Bezic and I'm a developer advocate here at AWS Serverless. In this short series of videos, I'm going to show you how to build and deploy the web application in the Ask Around Me blog series. You can read the companion AWS Compute blog post at the URL on the screen. In this episode, I'll walk through the final deployed application. I'll highlight some key parts of the front-end application and show how the API gateway integration works on the back-end.
So I'll go to our deployed backend from Amplify Console. This is my public URL, and just load up the application. Press F12, it opens the console, and you can see this in the layout view designed for mobile. If I click login, it takes me to the Auth0 login, where I can log in with an email or using social login with Google or Twitter. I'm just going to log in with Google now. Auth0 handles that login, and now you can see the application state is logged in. Now I have a second instance of this in another browser with a second account, so you can see the real-time elements when we add questions to the first application. So I'm going to ask a question here. What are the beaches like? There's two types of question, a star rating or a geo rating. I'll select a star rating. Now when I submit this question, you'll see that it immediately appears on the second application without needing a page refresh. And there you see the IoT message coming in through the console log. Currently the no rating, so I'll submit an answer of 5 stars in the second application. Just submit that answer. And you'll see both front ends then update with the new answer that's appeared via IoT. So I'll answer a second question. Where is the best coffee? And for this, I'll select a geo rating type and just submit that question. Again, you can see the second question has now appeared automatically in the second instance of the application. I'll answer this on a map. I'll just drop a pin anywhere and then submit. Back in the first application now, if we look at the results, we'll see that that data has arrived within that map. It's the beginnings of a heat map just there. So you can see two separate users are able to send questions and answers to each other in real time. I'll just answer this question with a 1 star so you can see the aggregation. Now on the second app, we see there's 2 ratings with an average of 3 stars as a result. If you pull up the code for this, we have 2 directories, a back-end and a front-end. I'm going to go into the front-end directory and just look at main.js. This is where you put the configuration information for connecting to the back-end. That's the API gateway URL, and that's how the front-end talks to the back-end. Meanwhile, if you look at the pool ID, host, and region, that's how it connects to the IoT service so that it can receive real-time information. Now, Spire applications are component-based. You'll see each of these view files in the source code folder showing different components within the application itself. And there's also a store, which we'll come to in just a second. Now, in home view, this shows you the type of interaction where in update results, first of all, after the application is initialized, it fetches the token from Auth0 and then calls the gateway URL with these query parameters. Now we're using the Axios library to perform the get, and it adds the bearer token from Auth0 to the authorization header. The response is then immediately stored in the application store. So if you look at get token silently, in the auth folder, there's this file called index.js. Code is just copied from this Auth0 location that they provide for Vue.js applications. All you need to do is paste in that code. And the only piece of customization is in auth_config, where you provide your domain client ID and audience from the configuration within Auth0. Now in the store, one of the great things about Spire applications is that you can store the state for various variables within the store itself. You get the state of those via getter methods, and anytime you need to make changes to that state, you change it using mutations. As a result, the front-end components all stay in sync when you make changes to store variables. Take a look at the architecture overview from the main blog post, and you'll see there are various API gateway methods that call Lambda functions, putting the requests into queues, eventually getting to DynamoDB tables. Now, the queues are a critical way that we decouple this application to handle heavy load and perform the aggregations for DynamoDB. We then publish all those changes back out through IoT Core. But let's take a look at the API gateway layer. In the management console for AWS, you'll see that we now have an API called Ask Around Me Backend, and it's an HTTP API type, one of the newer types compared to REST APIs. The routes are all listed. These correspond to the routes shown in the diagram. Now, the authorization of these routes, you'll see each one is protected with the JUT token. In Manage Authorizers, all we've provided is the name of the issuer URI for the token and the audience that we expect in that token. We then indicate where the source of the token will be once the authorization is completed. Now, if we look at any one of these, I'll just open the answers post route. This shows details of the authorizer that we're using. You can look at the integration by clicking on Configure here. This will show which Lambda function is being invoked when the API gateway route is called. I'll take a look at the questions post integration just here. We'll open this Lambda function to see how this works. And the important thing about this is that by the time the Lambda function is called, the authorization has already happened. So on line 31, you'll see the user ID is then extracted from the event that's handed into this Lambda function. Now, this Lambda function is fairly short and simple. What it does is it takes the event and then puts it onto a queue. So it submits the message to an SQS queue and then responds with a 200 back to the front end. So the front end continues on, and the message is processed asynchronously as a result. This is a really important method for being able to handle large numbers of requests to from your front end and handling them asynchronously on the back end. So I'll just close down these tabs from the front end code, and we'll take a quick look at the back end code. Opening up the back end directory, you'll see there's a template.yaml file. This is a SAM template. This defines the functions and the API authorizers. So the HTTP API authorizer can be defined in a few lines of YAML. And then down in the functions section, all we then have to do is specify the API as the one we want to use, and that function then will automatically use that authorization. Each one of these functions specifies the directory where the code lives. You'll see various directories with app.js files, and that's the underlying code for each one of these functions. There are 4 or 5 functions or so within this template.yaml.
In this video, I showed how the finished application works, and you saw how different users communicate questions and answers to each other in real time. Thanks for joining me for this brief introduction. To learn more about the Ask Around Me web application, visit the GitHub repo shown on the screen. I hope to see you next time. Happy coding!